Girivaradhari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janarandana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Anandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Jashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Pad Paramahamsa Parivrajaga Acharya Ashtotar Sara Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Shri Shri Gauranitai Shri Radha Krishna Jagat Subhadra Baladev Sudarshan Chakra Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaura Premanande Haribo Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutana Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarne. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Shreshtham Manamapi Shakti Putram Atra Swarupam Rupam Tasyagrajamuruparing Maturim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Girivaramaho Radhika Madhava Sham Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Guram Tam Natosmi Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Ataf Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitangscha. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Apart from Chaito Darpana Marjanam, we also have to do Mandira Marjanam, cleaning the mirror on the heart and in the temple. You're in a dusty place here. So it looks like I made a mistake coming to Berlin. I thought I'd come after being several days in Croatia. I thought I'd come to some other city for the Sunday program, but you don't have a Sunday program. You have a Saturday you have a regular class. So. Anyway, it's all Krishna's arrangement, and it's also inspiring to see devotees pushing on Srila Prabhupada's movement in various places. Any other translation needed, or everyone, I guess, who needs it gets it already? Into Hindi, yeah. I was thinking maybe someone else needs translation into that's already okay. Efficient. Yeah, so it's also inspiring to see devotees pushing on the movement in various places, big or small. Krishna is blissful. He's Paramatma, Anoraniyan Mahato Mahiyan. He's the smallest of the small and the biggest of the big. He's also medium-sized. In itself, Krishna conscious, blissful, but after so many years, we would have thought that in such a major city we'd have more, being such an important movement. And actually we did expect much more from ISKCON. I'm talking about from the 1970s, when Srila Prabhupada said the Krishna conscious movement will take over the whole world and there'll be Krishna conscious leaders, and here we are with a small apartment and getting more or less thrown out of that also. That's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at that is that this small apartment is by far the most important place in the whole of Berlin. Forget the, what's it called, the parliamentary house, Reichstag. I'm sure I didn't pronounce it properly, but that's important, no doubt. But this place is more important because Krishna's here, devotees are here. So, yeah, there may be some disappointment there, that's understandable. And when it's thought that we're in a movement that's going to bring in a change of the world, everyone will become Krishna conscious and everyone will be happy, and we're coming in also, and I was just commenting on my perceptions of Berlin from the few times I've been here, as among not only one of the world's most important cities in political terms, being the capital of one of the most important countries in the world in terms of economic power and cultural influence. Germany is an important country. But it's also one of the most degraded cities in the world in any terms, in terms of drugs, pornography, prostitution, all this kind of thing. So we would have hoped that the Krishna consciousness movement should have changed all this. Was it overly idealistic? We had the idea that, well, we just go on doing what we're doing, and heads of state will say, hey, that's right. And everyone will say, hey, that's right. And everyone will pick up a bead bag and chant Hare Krishna and be happy. But things have not exactly happened like that. Things have changed positively in many ways, particularly here, 35, 40 years ago, going on book distribution was dangerous in the sense that there was constant looking out for the police, and arrest was common, and especially after that raid at Schloss Rettershof, which maybe you don't remember, was that 1974, I believe. The police raided the castle, the Schloss that the devotees were renting, and there was very bad publicity in the newspapers, day after day after day. The Hare Krishna sect are murderers, thieves, child kidnappers, and just about everything bad you could imagine. So it was very difficult for the devotees. They went on distributing lots of books. Whereas nowadays you go out and say, hello, I'm a Hare Krishna monk. These are very nice books about self-realization. And people say, yeah, and bring out their euros, no more Deutschmarks, and buy the book. So that's a very positive change, but maybe not as much as we had hoped for. And the movement's been through many, mostly self-inflicted difficulties, and the Chancellor is still not chanting Hare Krishna, nor are many other people. So are these grounds for being disappointed? Should we become disappointed? Does it mean that Hare Krishna doesn't work, or it's just Prabhupada was he was over-optimistic, or we should become disappointed, or just accept that the best thing we can hope for is to be recognized as a bona fide little cult and sit in on interfaith conferences and hold hands with Christians and the liberal Muslims and light a candle for peace and say Om Shalom, and and Hare Krishna also, yeah, remember that one also. And is this all there is for it? Well, I say no. All glories to the Sankirtan movement of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which can cleanse the heart of all the dust accumulated for years together. Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said 500 years ago. Pritivite Ache Jato Nagaradi Gram Shabatra Pracha Hoibe Moranam. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that my name will be broadcast in every town and village of this world. So it may seem natural that there are disappointments, and I suspect that that's also a factor in some of our leading devotees investigating or pursuing other forms of preaching rather than the straightforward chanting Hare Krishna, Harinam, public Harinam, and distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, having festivals, distributing prasadam. These are all the basic activities of the Krishna consciousness movement. Do they work? Well, we have to say yes very solidly, otherwise what are we doing here? And I suppose some devotees think, yeah, well, what are we doing here? And then they think, well, I'm not going to be there anymore. I'm going to go somewhere else and try out something else. So I suspect that, that may be a factor in devotees, some of our leading devotees investigating other, what you could say, innovative angles of preaching, or outreach as it's sometimes called nowadays. For instance, going into academics, because certainly Srila Prabhupada wanted preaching to the scholarly class, as he called it. Of course, Srila Prabhupada's preaching was very direct. He met many scholars and preached them very directly. But he also formed the Bhaktivedanta Institute, particularly for presenting Krishna consciousness through a scientific medium, and he said that the members of the Bhaktivedanta Institute should present the teachings of Shastra, of Krishna consciousness, but using scientific language. Bringing, through science, bringing people to the conclusions of Shastra, which might seem an insurmountable task, as science deals with matter and Shastra deals with spirit. I mean, the central point, but Shastra also deals with matter. In fact, in Bhagavad Gita we find that Krishna he defines spirit to Arjuna in relation to matter, as the negation of matter. Ajo, Nitya, Shashvata, Purana, these are the four terms which Krishna uses to define spirit, which is in contradistinction to matter. The nature of the spirit, the jiva, the atma, is never born, whereas that which matter, it comes into, whatever is material comes into being at some point in time, and it is destroyed at some point in time. Anyway, I'm getting a little off the topic here. So Srila Prabhupada formed the Bhaktivedanta Institute with the idea of preaching to scientists and to intellectuals at large, not only scientists, philosophers like this, using the vocabulary and of the academics themselves. So certainly there is scope for that. Another form of outreach, it's seen that there's, over the last 30, 40 years, there's been ever-increasing interest in the West in what can be called Eastern spirituality, with yoga, Ayurveda, meditation, Buddhism, and all, but not particularly in Krishna consciousness. So some devotees have attempted to reach that, or to tap into that field of interest in Eastern spirituality by adopting some of the language and techniques and so for preaching practically we can do anything. The idea is somehow to get people from the state of non-Krishna consciousness to Krishna consciousness. So we have to meet them somewhere. If we just like Krishna himself, he could have said to Arjuna right at the beginning, Ma me kam sharanam vraja, sarvadhaman parityaja ma me kam sharanam vraja. Give up all your nonsense ideas and just surrender to me. But Arjuna was not prepared to do so at that point. I mean, his declaration to not fight was in a defiance of Krishna, because he knew that Krishna wanted him to fight. But then again he thought, well, what's going on? How can I defy Krishna? But how can I defy Bhishma and Drona? So it became a dilemma for him. Then he surrendered to Krishna to ask, Krishna, I know I don't want to fight, I know, but I'm bewildered, so you instruct me. You tell me what to do. But Krishna didn't just tell him. Arjuna could have thought, well, Krishna, you tell me fight or not fight, and whatever you do, whatever you say, I'll do. But Krishna didn't say that because he knew Arjuna didn't want to fight, and so Krishna first of all wanted to convince Arjuna why he should fight, and then only when Arjuna was convinced, then he told him, you give up all these ideas and surrender to me. So preaching means to interact with people at the level they're at and bring them to where we are at. Where are we at? Well, we're supposed to be at the lotus feet of Krishna. We're supposed to be in Krishna consciousness, which is very different from the intellectual field of mental speculation, and it's very different from the New Age field of mental speculation. Eastern spirituality in the West is called New Age. Actual Eastern spirituality is traditionally actual spiritual practice is highly disciplined, whereas New Age it's just discipline is one word which is absent from their vocabulary. The whole emphasis is just on feeling yourself to be spiritual. It's a complete sham. So even though we may not agree with every Eastern spiritual path, at least we can respect those who are serious practitioners. But New Age there's nothing serious about it at all. So we're talking about maybe some devotees, some leaders themselves, and they're thinking how to spread Krishna consciousness more widely, more quickly, have entered fields which are a long way from Krishna consciousness, but in the case of academic interaction or preaching, it's a very important field because the academics tend to influence the rest of society, especially by writing textbooks which for the schools and colleges, which influence people in their childhood and youth. And if there's any government decision to be made on just like if there's some court case about the Hare Krishna movement, then they'll ask scholars, what is your opinion? Because they're supposed to be the experts. So that's an important field. And New Age is a very big field which seems to be somewhat related to Krishna consciousness. So like looking for ways to make this message relevant and available, accessible to others. So, like I say, in preaching, anything can be done, but at the same time, the core movement has to be very strong. Otherwise, core movement means very strong, means temples like this with should be strong with fixed devotees, strong in sadhana, straightforward preaching, straightforward philosophy, everything very straightforward. Otherwise, what happens is if the emphasis becomes more on the less direct preaching, and that becomes the movement. The movement, the core movement is so much influenced by then our own message tends to get submerged or lost. In other words, if we're preaching to new ages, or actually it's very difficult to preach to these people, as you know. People are already submerged in their own imagination of spirituality. They don't want to hear anything. They already think they're God. From as far as they're concerned, they already are God in their own intoxicated, messed up minds. But we're talking in that kind of language, and then we go on doing it within our own temples, among our own devotees, and we preach to people, and they come, and we go on preaching to them like that, and we never bring them to the point of sarvadhaman parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja. That's the danger, that our own, we put so much effort into that kind of endeavor that we lose our own basic activities become overshadowed. Now, it should be understood very clearly by all followers of Srila Prabhupada that this chanting of Hare Krishna, public Harinam, our own spiritual practices that Srila Prabhupada has given us, Srila Prabhupada's books and the distribution of them, these are extremely powerful spiritual processes. And any amount of intellectual discussion or waffling, the New Age mumbo-jumbo, cannot have anything like the power of straightforward Krishna consciousness. It's a very powerful process. And even though people may not respond to it very quickly, it's a disaster, but sometimes it's more disastrous than others. And since the 1950s in the Western world, people have been living in a cocoon sick. And that's supposed to be the ideal. And America, for all its American dream, there are plenty of beggars, people without homes. So the whole society is a mess. So many examples. I mean, you could go on all evening speaking about how the food they feed you is full of poison, the air is full of poison. You have to buy water, so it's not poisonous. That's also poisonous because they put it in plastic bottles. But it's not. I guess it's not as poisonous as the stuff that comes out of your tap. And actually, although people don't know it, the education's poisonous. The TV is poisonous. The whole society is poisonous. So why it should come that people will wake up and say, hey, what's wrong? Where did we go wrong? We need to rethink the whole society. Isn't it that awakening should come? Of course, people are, like I say, they're bombed out by sense gratification and drugs and excessive sex and video, computer games and internet. But if there's any sanity left, which we're distributing books, and we're preaching, whatever way we're preaching it is on the basis that people are sane enough to understand some philosophy. So the point should come at some point in time, and it may take some major upheaval, such as wars or starvation. That's very possible in Britain, especially, where they import about, I think it's like 80% of their food now. So if there's any hitch in the supply line, then, or actually any big city, if the oil supply stops, or the electricity stops, or the water stops, the big cities are in a mess. The food won't come in. The food has to be brought in. If it's not brought in daily, then within a few days Berlin will starve. So the upheaval could happen at any time. Economic upheaval and economic downturn, that could come at any time. Whatever. I was just speaking with some devotees. They're saying with the economic tightening up in Britain now, they're cutting out all the social services which have been going on since the Second World War. You might have been out of a job there. You're in the National Health Service. And so the poverty is going to bite. And recently there were riots broke out in London, and the devotees are living in London. They told me that there's like talk, people are talking, there are going to be more, we can expect more riots. Because on one hand they're promoting consumerism, buy this, buy that, and some people are very fancy with fancy cars and fancy clothes, but many people they see on the TV all the time, buy this, buy that on the internet, but they can't afford it and they're frustrated, they can hardly live. So people in London, they're afraid, and all over Britain, of more and more riots. So I'm just saying this to make the point that there should come a point in time when people wake up to the fact that this whole society is on a wrong footing. And another major thing is the basic atheism that comes through the school system with Darwin's theory. And even this idea, religions are okay, you can believe whatever you like. It's another, but there's no scientific delineation of the nature of reality. It's just, religions are just taken as some kind. It's all right to believe in a religion, but you can't say that any religion is better than the other, and they're all just belief systems. Often people ask, what do you believe? But Srila Prabhupada presented Krishna consciousness as is presented in Shastra, Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam, scientific understanding of the nature of reality, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and everything else in relation to Him. So, there is very great scope. I mean, in the time should come, and it should come. Priest, you have to be trained in a seminary for like 7 years. But they recognize it. Actually, it's a fact that this knowledge is very powerful, and they recognize that the people who look at our movement and seriously, and who are seriously spiritually minded people, consider this movement to be very spiritual because of the knowledge, the practices, the principles that we follow. No meat, no fish, no eggs, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex. People can appreciate that this is something serious. And I believe in India also